Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chabalala. My focus today will be EMS grade 9. We are looking at the accounting question, the transactions of CRJ. Remember the focus here, it is the focus on the trading business. Then move to the next slide. Next slide, Paul. What is accounting question? It's a fundamental concept in accounting that expresses the relationship between the company's asset, liability, and equity. Remember this one, when you get it in the form, usually the basic form of it is that assets are equal to owner's equity plus liability. This means that the valuable assets of the business, the valuable items of the business, they are made of the money that was contributed by the owner plus the debt that is owing to other people. Accounting question is the foundation of the double entry bookkeeping system, which means that every financial transaction affects a minimum of 2 accounts. Remember, some it can be 4, some it can be 3, but a minimum it must be 2 accounts so that you can be able to apply the double entry principle. Next slide. Now let us recap from the last week presentation of accounting concept. When you're dealing with the accounting concept, it means you are giving the basics knowledge or the basic knowledge that will guide you when you deal with accounting. Let us start with the basic concept, which is asset. We recap. We say assets are the resources owned by the business that has economic value, such as inventory and equipment. Remember, we have a lot of assets. We have current assets, we have non-current assets, and the financial assets. But for grade 9, we focus on the inventory and equipment, which is they fall under current assets and non-current assets. It means you are looking all non-current assets and all current assets. Now, owner's equity, the owner financial interest in the business. This is the owner's financial interest in the business. Then when you calculate it in most times, we are saying this is the difference between the assets and liabilities. But learners, you should remember that under owner's equity, we do have capital, we do have drawings, we do have expenses and the incomes. Now, you must remember that capital, it goes together with the income in terms of the effect on the owner's equity. Then drawings goes together with the expenses. Now, the last one, it is the liabilities. Liabilities are the debts of the business. But for term 1 and term 2, for term 1, we concentrate only on the cash transactions. Now, in term 2 and term 3, you'll be focusing on the liabilities because now we're talking about buying and selling goods on credit to customers. But for term 1, we only focus on the cash. That's why in most cases, you'll find that accounting question in term 1 test, it only focuses on the assets and the owner's equity when it comes to the analysis of transaction. Next slide, Paul. Now, when you analyze the transactions in accounting, learners, you must remember that we are dealing with 2 different accounts, the accounts that falls under assets account and the account that falls under owner's equity accounts. Now, you need to know which side the accounts will increase or decrease. Now, when you're talking about the assets, all the assets, they have debit side and the credit side. But what is important is to know which side increases the assets and which side assets will decrease. Now, assets, all the assets account increases on the debit side and decreases on the credit side. Now, when you talk about owner's equity, remember it is the financial interest of the owner. Now, we are saying this one, it has the debit side and the credit side. But now, when you focus on the increase and the decrease, we are saying all the owner's equity, they decreases on the debit side, then they increases on the credit side. But now, learners, you need to remember that under owner's equity, we have different accounts. We have the expenses and the incomes. We have capital and the drawings. Now, capital and the income, they have a positive impact on the owner's equity. Now, expenses, they have a negative impact on the owner's equity. They decreases owner's equity on the debit side together with the drawings. The next slide, Paul. Now, we are going to analyze the transactions of the CRJ. Now, remember, on the CRJ, we are talking about cash receipt journal. On the cash receipt journal, the first column, where we record the amount of money, it is on the bank column. Now you need to remember that every time all the transactions of the CRJ, bank will automatically be affected. Automatically, it will be affected. Now, when you read the transaction, you need to analyze it in such a way that you'll see the contra account or the account that goes together or against it with the bank account, together with the bank account. In this case, you are saying bank, it is automatically affected, but we are going to look at another account or the contra account that will goes together with the bank in one transaction. Now, looking at the example given to us, it says receive 5,000 donation. Now, in this case, if you receive a cash of 5,000 as a donation, remember the business need to record the transaction. When you record the transaction, the first step, it is to record it on the source document. The source document, it will be a receipt because now we are going to receive the money, we'll issue out the receipt. Then we as the business will be left out with the duplicate receipt. Then we give the person who donated the money original receipt. Now, the source document in this case, it will be analysis of, to be duplicate of receipt under source document. Now, which account will be debited? Learners, you need to remember that always when you receive money, bank, it is an asset, it increases on the debit side. Therefore, when the transaction or the table say analyze the transaction, then we have account debited. The account debited in this case, it will be the bank. Why the bank it is debited? Because it is an asset. All the assets, they increase on the debit side. Now, the contra account in this case, it will be a donation received. It will be account credited. It will be donation received. Now, the impact under assets, owners, equity, and liabilities. Remember, I've said we are dealing only with the assets and the owner's equity. Liabilities, it will be in term 3. Now, assets will increase by 5,000. Also, owner's equity will increase by 5,000. It means here we are proving that left-hand side, it is equal to right-hand side. Now, we have the 3 transactions that we need to analyze. Here are these 3 transactions. The first one, P. Shaba, the owner, deposited 100,000 directly into the business bank account as the capital contribution. Remember, again, here we are saying bank automatically affected. Now, learners, you need to identify the contra account. I'm moving to the next transaction. Cash sales of merchandise, 7,000. Then the cost price, it is 3,500. I know that the teachers have emphasized this transaction to you that we are dealing now with the trading business. If you are dealing with the trading business, we are talking about selling of the merchandise. We are buying the merchandise, then we sell it at a profit. Now, when you sell it at a profit, you'll see now we have sold the merchandise with 7,000. The cost price, it was 3,500. Please, learners, identify the accounts that are affected on this transaction. Then the next transaction, receive 4,200 from T. Tenzo for rent and issue receipt number 04. Again, here, bank, it is automatically affected. Now you need to identify the contra account that goes together with the bank. Next slide, Paul. On the next slide now, we are now analyzing each transaction. We start with the first one. P. Shaba, the owner, deposited 100,000 directly into the business bank account as a capital contribution. Now, when you analyze the transaction, learners, I've said bank, it is automatically affected. Now, you look the contribution, this amount, it was for what? It says the amount, it was for capital contribution. It means the contra account in this case, it will be a capital. Remember, we are having number 1, which is a bank. Then the second one, it will be a capital. Now, the source document in this case, because the amount was deposited directly into the bank account, it will be the bank statement. It will be seen on the bank statement. Then the account to be debited, it will be the bank. Then the account to be credited, it will be a capital. Remember, capital falls under owner's equity. We said owner's equity has debit side and the credit side. Now, owner's equity increases on the credit side. Now, when the owner contribute money as a capital contribution, it means owner's equity will increase because of what? Of the capital contribution. Now, the account to be credited, it will be the capital. It falls under owner's equity. Now, the impact under owner's under assets, owner's equity, and liability, it will be plus 100,000 of assets plus 100,000 of owner's equity. We are done with the first transaction. Move to the next one. On the next transaction, again, we look at the transaction now of the trading business. Remember, this one, it is the new one in grade 9. This one, it is the new one in grade 9. Cash sales of merchandise, 7,000, the cost price 3,500. What must come into your mind, learners? We have sold the trading stock. When you sell the trading stock, it means we are talking about the sales. The first account that will be affected, it will be the sales. Now, it says it was the cash sales. If it is the cash sales, it means the amount of money will be taken into our bank account. The second account that will be affected, it will be the bank account. Now, the third account that will then the fourth one, which is the last one, to be the cost price. In this case, or in this transaction, we have 4 accounts that are affected by this transaction. Now, the source document, it will be CRR. Then the account debited, it will be, the first one to be the bank. We'll be receiving the money, 7,000 after selling our trading stock. Then the contra account, it will be sales. Remember, sales falls under nominal account section. It forms part and parcel of owner's equity. Then it means it has the positive impact on the owner's equity. It means the owner's equity will increase by the same amount, 7,000. Now, coming to the last 2 accounts, it will be the cost of sales and the trading stock. Cost of sales falls under nominal account section. Then it is part and parcel of owner's equity. Now, it has the negative impact on the owner's equity. Now, the negative impact of the owner's equity is recorded on the debit side. It decreases the owner's equity on the debit side. Therefore, the account to be debited, it will be cost of sales. Then contra account, it will be the trading stock. Remember, it goes together with the trading stock. Then why we record the trading stock as the account to be credited? Trading stock, it is an asset. It decreases on the credit side. When we sell our stock, it means our account of trading stock will decrease. On which side? On the credit side. Then the amount, it will be minus 3,500 and minus 3,500, or negative 3,500 and negative 3,500. Learners, please do not make mistake here. Remember that the bank and sales, they increase. It means it must be plus, and the amount of sales, it must be more than the amount of cost of sales. In some transactions, in some activities, you'll be required to calculate the cost of sales. Remember, always, cost of sales must be less than the amount of sales. Moving to the next transaction, which is the last one. In this case, we are looking at the transaction whereby the business is receiving the money. The next transaction, Paul. On the next transaction, it is the transaction of rent income. On the rent income, it means the business will receive the money. When you receive the money for rent, it will be having a positive impact on the owner's equity. Remember, rent falls under nominal account section, and rent, it is an income. It has the positive impact on the owner's equity. Now, the contra account of bank here, it will be the rent. Bank always, it is debited. It means if you look at the first transaction, the second transaction, and the third transaction, you will realize that always bank, it is debited on the CRJ transaction. On the cash receipt general transaction, bank will always be debited. Then the ones that will be credited, it is the contra account for each transaction. Now, bank here, it will increase by 4,200, and the owner's equity will also increase by 4,200. Learners, take into consideration that always bank, it is affected automatically. It is affected in all transactions of cash receipt journal. Then the contra account, in most cases, they falls under owner's equity. Although we'll be having some trading stock which will be account credited, but it will goes together with the account that falls under owner's equity. Then this, it is how we do the CRJ. This is how we analyze the transaction of the CRJ on the accounting equation. Remember, learners, again, the plus, sign of plus and sign of negative on the amount that falls under assets, owner's equity, and liabilities, it is important to identify if the account will increase or decrease. Thank you very much, Paul.